word indie is a short form for independent. So, indie music is literally any music produced independently from major commercial record labels. However, most people see indie music as a specific genre and care less about how it is produced.
Indie has turned into kind of a funny umbrella term, but I think in general it just means you're doing your own thing without the help of a label or a producer necessarily. So you're probably self-recording, self-releasing, you're booking your own gigs, you're doing all your promotion, you are a musician and a business person.
Of all the genres of music I am familiar with, it may be the one with the least concrete set of actual parameters.
It could either mean that you're independent, as in you're not signed to a record label, but I think that definition is very problematic because a lot of music isn't signed to a record label.
I don't know anymore. It's sort of a vague term. There's something about like classic, like middle America rock music that wouldn't fall under the indie umbrella, and just about everything else you could kind of throw the word indie in front of.
Bands that are doing it for themselves, I think you could use that as a definition of indie rock for now.
Indie music originated in New York City in the 70s. Punk music exploded at this time, featuring bands like the Ramones and Patti Smith. The new genre quickly spread to the UK. In the 80s, punk artists wanted to change things up and experiment with their music, and suddenly the subgenre of new wave emerged. Blondie and the Talking Heads are two bands considered to be new wave. Also in the early 80s, many bands appeared with musicians that weren't the greatest at guitar or didn't have a lead singer with a powerful voice, but felt that they could produce good music despite this. This inspired many independent music labels to appear. In the past, indie musicians were not so common, as getting known as a musician was very difficult without the use of a major record label. Nowadays, with the creation of the internet, it is easier for musicians to market themselves on their own. Some of the first indie rock bands were The Smiths, Pixies, Sonic Youth, and Joy Division. Producing music independently leaves musicians with more freedom to make their own decisions. In the past decade, there has been a 510% increase in indie musicians making a full-time living off playing music. Unfortunately, this is still a small portion of the indie music population.
My favorite part of being a musician is probably performing. It's really exciting, it's fun, and it's cool to like see people's reactions in real time.
That's part is, the songs, like you write these songs and you want to share them with people, and to see them connect with a way that, or somebody to tell you, it's like, oh, those lyrics meant something to me, and playing them at a show and seeing people sing them back to you, like that's, for me, like the most gratifying thing.
The other thing that I really love is knowing that I wrote a song that made somebody feel something.
I think there's some magic there when people get together in a room or in a recording studio and put all their efforts and creative energy into one goal.
One song I wrote a couple years ago, and multiple friends have told me that it just made them bawl like a baby, which is pretty awesome because I bawled like a baby when I wrote it, and it's kind of like, cool, I had that feeling and now you had that feeling because I gave it to you.
Yeah, when you have a passion for something to that degree, it's sort of like, not much of a choice, just like, I gotta do it.
There is water everywhere and I can see the sun. I'm so tired, Mama, tell me please, am I the only one?
I think, as always, the best thing about being independent in any art form is that you get to do what you want and you don't have to answer anybody.
People talk a lot about like artistic freedom and stuff when they have this conversation. When you actually have something to contribute to the business aspect of your career and no one wants to hear it, that can be a pain in the ass. It just came down to business. Major labels want to take a bunch of your money, and touring is where we make our money. Selling records isn't, and giving up a cut of that touring income was really, at the time we decided it was too bitter a pill to swallow.
If you're able to create a business model for yourself where you're not repped by an agent or by a label and stuff, you're going to be making 100% of your profits.
I like the amount of control. I want to control everything. That maybe sounds funny, but like I would like to be able to know what's going out there and do it all myself.
To me, it's all kind of the same. At the end of the day, it's just people working in companies. And the most important thing we've realized is that nobody cares about the band more than you care about the band. Your agent has, 30 other bands they book. Your manager has 10 other acts they work with. The label has hundreds of acts that they have to put out. I've always felt like no matter who we're working with, we've had a very independent spirit. It's your own little family business. You have to be your own little entrepreneur. You have to wake up every day with like a list of things and emails to send and things to do. And I'm really proud of that part, though. I really enjoy that part of the business.
But she doesn't know who I am, and she doesn't give a damn about me, 'cause I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Yeah, I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Listen to Iron Maiden, maybe with me.
I'm not a full-time musician because that's really not a lucrative way to live at my level.
I'm not a full-time musician, so I have other part-time jobs that I work.
I'm not a full-time musician. I'm in school for a humanities degree, and I work as an ice cream server at the moment.
I make a little bit of money off of gigs, but it's only ever been like minuscule.
I am a full-time musician. Very proud of that, and I acknowledge how lucky I am, because there's a lot of talented musicians out there that still have to, pick up shifts at the coffee shop or at the music store. The singer of The National, he said something like, "I still feel like we're playing hooky right now, from our real jobs."
Well, I wanna be famous someday, and I wanna make good, steady pay. And I'm thinking of kicking you
Yeah, I mean, that's actually really the dream. I mean, sure, it'd be cool to be more famous, but what I'd really like to be able to do is just support myself by playing music or making films. That's, if I can make my living off of that and not have to do other work and just devote my time to that all, year round, then I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, we just really like jamming together, and it was something that we were just passionate about, but I don't think any of us assumed it'd ever become like a full-time thing.
I totally assumed that I would be famous. I totally assumed I would be way more famous than I am.
I mean, I'm very happy and satisfied, like just the fact that we've gotten this far, but I think, in the words of Springsteen, everyone's got a hungry heart.
There's no way to know. There's really no way to know.
To some level of fame, I don't think super famous, but some recognition for art, for music.
I know a lot of musician friends who've let go of the fame dream because it's kind of difficult to hold. It's kind of heavy. Like, it's like, oh, I really want this thing, and I'm nowhere near it, and that gets depressing after a while. But I would say I'm still kind of clinging to it. I want to be there eventually.
Such a weird pipe dream to pursue that I think somewhere in your head you have to feel like, yeah, it's going to work for you. It's the thing that enables you to really push and keep going. And it's like harder and easier than it's ever been, because you have all these mediums available to you by which you can connect directly to people who are going to like your music. You don't have to get a record deal anymore and get a CD in stores. You can just put a song on SoundCloud. You can be done. But because it's so easy, it means that everyone's doing it, and so now you have to make yourself heard among this glut of like-minded people with guitars and with SoundCloud accounts. How you stand out from that is a mystery to me.
It's pretty easy to write any venue in the city, and they'll kind of book you on a crappy day of the week, and if you do well and bring up people, then they'll book you on a better night.
That's a drain on a lot of people, and it's really hard to get yourself out there and bug people for whether they've got an opening at their venue and they'll take you.
In the early days, it was just a lot of sort of hustling. A lot of sort of the breakthrough moments are just made through networking and just being out at watching other bands play as much as you can, making friends with bands and managers and people at the radio stations and things like that.
It'll be different for everyone. Your weird lucky break won't look like my weird lucky break. The only thing that everyone has in common that succeeds, I think, is that they're prepared when the lucky break comes.
A lot of success, as I said, has to do with having some luck on your side and time and place.
The trickiest part of being in a band for me, and I think right now, is sort of managing your expectations versus the reality of the industry as it exists today.
The way I try to think about it is do everything you can to put yourself in a position to succeed.
In order to succeed the way I thought I would have to work super, super, super hard. And I think some people don't necessarily have that same sense.
Being in a band or playing music or doing any sort of art is basically like being an entrepreneur.
People don't get into this business to like spend 8 hours a day deciding on 3 chords. Like, that's not fun. You know, that's not rock and roll. That doesn't have any romance to it. But that's what it takes.
There's a different mishmash or hodgepodge or melting pot of factors for anybody that gets famous, and it's a combination of management and promotion and talent, and I think a pretty good deal of luck.
The music that you're making, when you're making that music, the luck that you have, the way you look.
It also is a lot about connections and who you know already in the business and who's going to be willing to give you an in somewhere.
Yeah, persistence to drive like for a sustained period of time.
It was a bad idea to give me this kind of time. When they said you're gonna be in solitary confinement, and while the other inmates are outside lifting bar beds, I'm in an 8x10 a prison cell.
In 10 years, I see myself definitely still making music in some capacity.
I hope the band will always be playing, and I think we will be. And I think it'll hopefully open some doors to do some other kind of just have fun, really. It's like that's like we're sort of in the business of having fun.
Like for me, music will always be there. Like I'll always want to like pursue something with it.
Music is never not going to be a part of my life. That's not really an option for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the next Drake.
Things that wear me down come back for more. It's gone to my head. I'll take you backwards now, but you won't let me forget.
Oh, as far as Canadian cities go, I think Toronto's the only place to be practically if you're a new musician.
There's a lot of people out there doing the same thing as you are, and so you can make connections with them, and you can it can become a very community-driven thing.
Where you could just be an indie as in not huge, like possibly not even full time, but just like have a good life playing music in like a fun scene where people are going out and seeing live music a lot.
And with the amount of people that are here and the amount of people making music, there's pretty much every kind of music going on. So you can find a home somewhere.
Toronto has a ton of venues to play in. There's like a real scene. There's lots of different kind of genres. Yeah, for young indie bands, like you're just like looking for an outlet, like a place to share your music, and there's lots of places to share your music in Toronto.
You got to start by gigging where you live. You know, you got to start by schlepping your amp in a taxi or something. That's a lot easier to do in Toronto, where there's a bazillion rock clubs and there's always a show you can play.
But that is kind of a double-edged sword, because like it's great that there are all these people doing the same thing as you and you can connect with them, but also everyone is doing the same thing as you, and there's only so many people that are going to be, achieving upward motion and going somewhere, if that's what you want to do, if you want to be famous or get all this recognition. Like there's just an overwhelming sea of people trying to do this.